Good evening, everybody. We will call this meeting to order at 6:04. Council member attendance, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Pask was absent this evening. Councilmember Capaldi.
Here.
Councilmember Hul.
Here.
Councilmember Ionati.
Here.
Councilmember Mars is absent. Vice President Brown.
Here.
President Verducci.
Here, please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, in the event of an emergency or that we are overtaken by leprechauns, you can come out that door you came in, or you can head out the sides over here to the exits marked in back. First item up on the docket, we have public comment on docketed items. If there's anybody in the room who'd like to come up and speak on docketed items, please come on up. And if not, Mr. Marcus, you see anybody on Zoom? All right, moving on. Item number 2 tonight, we have appointment of town officials. So tonight, we've got Coventry Planning Commission. Obviously very important to the town, keep everything running as far as the developments and other operations go. We had 5 applicants originally on the agenda. Mr. Galloway has removed himself, and we know we don't have Mr. Flamond here this evening. But if anybody else is here that would like to come up, introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about yourselves, please come on up. In whatever order you'd like.
Good evening. My name is Glenn Skirka. I live at 899 Town Farm Road. I put an application in for this board. I think it was one point last year, but I've been on several boards in this town, very familiar with the process. I was the chairman of the sewer board, chairman of the sewer board of review. I'm a civil engineer. I was a design engineer for about 10 years, and then I switched over to construction. And I feel like I got a lot to offer, so I'm here to help. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please come on up and name and address for the record.
Good evening. How are you? My name is Patrick Delude. I live currently on 96 Wisteria Drive in Wood Estates. I've lived in this town for the past 33 years, so my whole life pretty much. I know a lot of people in town. I am a full-time plumber and I work full-time at Electric Boat. So I run my company after Electric Boat, so I'm nonstop working. I'm very familiar with plans and looking at different documents for all different developments and housing and whatnot. And I feel like it would be a good opportunity for me to give back towards the community. I am a younger person going for this, so I believe I would be good for this job. So that's all I got to say.
Can I ask you a question?
There's no way you're younger than us, but go ahead.
Nothing's younger than us.
No, I think you're the youngest one.
I think you said that you work at Electric Boat and then
Yep.
you do your own company after.
Yep.
So are you going to have time to do this commission?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Right. Is that it?
No? All right, and one other thing you mentioned, I know one thing that's important for planning commissions is reading plans and stuff like that. Did you say that's some of the stuff you do in your?
I do that in my line of business. Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we've got a familiar face here. This guy needs something to do.
Nathan Chatterley, 4 Linden Lane. I'm actually going to make this real easy for you guys because I got to take myself out of contention for this because you may be able to explain this a little better than I can, Mr. Solicitor, but apparently there's a Rhode Island General Law 36-14-5 that states if you bring anything to the commission and you're sitting on it, you have to recuse yourself from that and for an entire year. So I don't want to waste anybody's time by having to keep coming up here. I have a couple of projects coming up in Coventry that are probably going to have to go across the planning board.
Well,
Thank you.
appreciate that from you. Thank you very much. Me-
Wait a minute, is that it? Is that it?
I believe so, yes. Mr. Galloway actually removed himself from the process altogether. And Mr. Flamand is just got a work issue tonight, but I believe still wants to be in. So we can appoint one, we can appoint two, we can, up to the pleasure of the council.
I make a motion to appoint Patrick Deludi to the Planning Commission Board.
I second that.
Motion in a second. Any discussion? All right. All you good? Did you have a hand? Oh, okay. All right. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Welcome aboard. Appreciate you coming in and yeah, we need those young people to help hold doors for us and
And he
pick
was
up
here
stuff.
the last time.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you, sir. All right. So we can continue to keep this posted, Dan or Mr. Solicitor, if we don't have any more tonight. It said 2 on the agenda, but I thought it was
Want to do, keep it open to see.
pleasure of the council, yeah. I think we can have him come back up if you'd like. Hold on one sec. Ms. Skarka?
So about 10 years ago, there was an issue with ethics.
Yes.
Did you learn your lesson?
Yes. Without getting into too many specifics, yes, I did.
Is there any conflict now?
There is not.
Anyone else have any questions on this issue? Okay, great. Thank you.
Welcome.
Councilman Hull?
I thought we were, I was under the impression we were gonna be doing an alternate seat. What happened?
I wasn't sure if we were, oh, that was the
That's a
one where
change.
we needed the charter change.
It's a charter change.
We thought we
decided to
could.
Fill the 9
and then-
spots.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yep.
yep. So this would bring us up to 7? 9.
There's 8 right now, and you got 1 opening.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So, any other applications come in since we posted? Okay. All right, well, open it up to suggestions, thoughts, ideas. Otherwise, if there's no other nominations, we'll move on. All right. Thank you very much. Next item up is public comment for undocketed items. Anybody in the room like to come up and speak on undocketed items, please come up, name and address for the record. All right, vote online. Marcus?
Nope.
All right. Cruising along. New matters. So picking back up where we left off last night, we continue our budget workshop. Tonight we have a different set of departments to discuss. Do you want to start, Director Savetti? All right, over to you.
So good evening. Going to review those budgets again, similar to what we did last evening. And we do have the directors here this evening for the budgets that we're going to be looking at. Again, this evening, I left in front of your spot there at the desk, a summary of some of the items, just the highlights. The first page is really just a repeat of what we said last night, but I am going to repeat it just because in case we have additional members here in the public or those online. So bear with me. So overall, the aggregate expenditure proposals submitted totals for fiscal 2027 totals $132,949,586. This represents an increase of 4.57% or roughly 5.8 million. The proposed budget complies with the approved deficit reduction plan, whereby we increase the maintenance of effort appropriation to the school department by 2% or 1,045,000. And we also increase the deficit reduction allocation by $3,000. The projected state aid, which gets passed through to the school department but is included in the town's general fund budget, is projected to increase by roughly 1.43 million or 4.9%. Also, as I noted last night, on Friday afternoon, we received notification that healthcare and dental cost premiums are increasing by approximately 17.49% for healthcare and 11.9% for dental. So that's where, when we look at the various departmental budgets, you'll see significant increase in the healthcare line items. So we've made those adjustments in the budget in front of you this evening. The town manager continues to recommend that we continue to fund all the pension plans. So we have two defined benefit pension plans at the town, which is the police pension plan and the local 94 municipal pension plan. We also contribute to the school SRP pension plan. So again, the actuary determined contribution was provided by the actuaries. We're recommending and including in this budget that we continue to fund those plans as recommended so that we can maintain on track to get a fully funded pension plan in the future. So that represents police pension plan, an increase of approximately 287,000. Municipal employees pension plan, an increase of 44,000. And the school SRP pension plan, a $90,000 additional contribution. Debt service expenditure includes year two, which is interest-only payments for the new $25 million school bond, approximately $1.2 million. So it represents an increase of $306,000 from the fiscal 2026 budget. And just a little notation there that in the budget itself, it's really a net amount because we do have some investment earnings that we're achieving on the amount held in escrow. So we reduce that expenditure line item by approximately $375,000, which is going to be offset from investment earnings. And then the last comment is that we're going to continue to try the commitment to maintain our investment in infrastructure and capital. So the budget will include a CIP budget of approximately $550,000, while also including road paving projects, proposed budget of approximately $800,000. The intent would be we'd spend $1.2 million and get a reimbursement from the state through the road restore program for $400,000. So the town's net amount in this budget would be $800,000. Now the specific budgets, departments that are on your agenda this evening, the town council department, 110. Obviously small budget, but proposed decrease of $500 to the budget. We're just removing the professional services line item that's been part of the budget for the town council. There's been no expenditures there the past 4 years. So we're just recommending moving that. You can always look to restore that. That's up to you folks. Yep, you can add that back in. So again, those are adjustments we could certainly make. Again, this is a budget that we're proposing from the departments at this point and the town manager. Town manager department 210, total budget 475,000. Overall projected increase is 22,316 or 4.9%. And the increases there, and you'll see the town manager compensation increase as well as the assistant town manager. And then also the increase in educational services, which is my understanding is in accordance with the new contractual obligation or employment agreement that the council entered into with the town manager. So that really comprises the increase there as well as healthcare. The legal department 410 solicitor's budget, we're proposing an increase of 100,000. It's in my opinion, a very optimistic budget. You know, we think you'll see the breakdown. We broke it down between town solicitor line and then other attorneys, so outside counsel. Again, as you all know and are aware of, we have a number of lawsuits that the town's dealing with right now. So, we think the solicitor's budget can be achieved very well, and it's going to be savings from where we were in the past based on the new solicitor's position or new folks filling that position. But it's just that outside counsel right now that we really don't know. So again, we went up 100,000 from the existing budget, but it's very possible, depending how the litigation goes and the amount of litigation, we could see that department coming in at $1 million or more. So it's something, again, we would just continue to monitor and try to make the adjustments as needed. If the council, felt a need that we should push it up higher at the starting point, we can certainly do that. If we keep it at the level we're proposing and we do overexpend, again, as we talked about last night, we do have some fund balance that we could dip into to help cover those costs, or, look for other savings throughout if maybe some other costs aren't coming to fruition through the year. But again, we try to give you a budget that we're hopeful or optimistic that we'll be able to achieve, but depends how much that litigation drags out.
Councilman Hall.
Just to clarify here, although we brought on a new solicitor at a lower price, we're still increasing solicitor budget by $100,000. And the majority of that is for litigation going to be, I'm assuming, for outside attorneys. Am I hearing that correctly?
That's
I
correct.
want to ensure that the frustration is pointed in the right direction with the legal costs.
Yes, 100%. So when we say
We
solicitor's
tried to mitigate
budget-
it on a council by, hiring Mr. Igliozzi.
Yes, when we say solicitor's budget, we're looking at the really legal department as overall. So the solicitor's line itself, we have reduced, and looking at where we're, currently trending, we think the amount on the budget is conservative. We think we'll be fine with that. It's going to be strictly the legal other services, which now we're breaking out into separate line items.
So we just have to stop getting sued and we should be okay.
Clear up the existing litigation and
I just wanted to clarify
Avoid it
the
in the
difference
future.
between the solicitors, the new contract with the solicitor and.
correct. At this point,
Thank you.
since the hiring of the new solicitor, we have seen those monthly bills decrease. So there have been savings.
Thank you for clarifying.
And we might also want to clarify that's for both of our solicitors as well, so it's not. Gotcha.
Which cover planning, zoning, council meetings, a lot.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. The next item that was on the agenda this evening is the Coventry Housing Authority, Department 640. Again, you'll see there's no change in that budget. And to my understanding and talking with the town manager, we're required under Rhode Island state law to pay the stipends for their board members. So that's what's part of the budget. Because we were questioning that ourselves, why are the board members for the Housing Authority? That's a separate legal entity part of the town's budget, but it's state law that requires
I feel
that.
like this budget season is just getting a lot of kicked in the butt by the state. It's like the state's telling us we got to pay this and we got to pay that and we got to pay this and.
That's been in the state law for years. It's
Yeah,
not
I
anything
know.
that's new, but we were just trying to get clarification.
Wait till the schools come up. Yeah, I
No.
think you'll share that
I got my notes ready.
with us. Councilwoman Capaldi?
Mr. Sveti, what is that line item? What are the?
That's for their board members.
I
So
know, but
board-
I don't have it in front of me. What is
Okay,
the
sorry.
amount?
It's 3,100 altogether, and is there 5 of them? That's an odd number.
Sorry, I lost my page here.
Less. All right. Just in case.
You don't need to look for it.
I got, I thought I had it tabbed off, but I don't. I want to say it's 3,000 change. Total budget's
You
approximately
don't believe me? I
4,000
mean,
$4,069.
is the total budget, correct?
that's total budget. Looks like secretary's 1,500, board members 3,100, total 4,600.
Mhm.
And while we're on the topic, not much we do with housing authority besides the board member portion, kind of out of our line of sight. Thank you, Director.
Next on your agenda was the engineering department, so Department 810. We have a total budget, proposed budget of 309,000, approximately a $9,800 increase, which is 3.28%. The proposed increase is really just, compensation increases and then the overall increase in benefits. As you can see, we're projecting healthcare for the individuals covered. So there's two full-time individuals in the Department of Engineering, and healthcare alone's going up roughly 4,800. So that's that 17% that I had mentioned earlier. But again, the director is here this evening if you have any questions. But just, if you go back a couple years, we've saved significant money, in my opinion, in the sewer department and some of the other things where we were outsourcing some of the work that was being done by the engineering, to help the engineers. So now we're saving some money having those two positions there for a couple of years now, so. Okay. Human Services, Department 925. Again, Director Robillard unfortunately is on vacation this week, so couldn't be in attendance, but if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them. But Human Services, again, which is the senior center component, proposed budget, roughly 899,000. It's actually a decrease of 25,000 from the current budget. And the decrease is really a result of realignment of some of the fringe benefits based on current staffing. So there's been some transitions there. We have some people that may be getting the stipend now rather than taking health coverage or single coverage versus family coverage.
Councilman Hool.
In regards to the stipends, I know a lot of these things are probably contractual, but the incentive to I want to push back at some of the incentives, some of these stipends. I don't understand why we incentivize so much. Like, why can't we cut that down a little bit where we're still giving an incentive to the employee, but are they really going to drop their spouse's health insurance to come here? Right? Like, I'm most likely probably not. So some of those things, I don't know what that dollar amount comes to, but we give a lot of stipends, a lot of like the 10% for the 401k. Like, I want to push back on that a little bit. I think some of these high stipends, it's the only place that I can find. Otherwise, we're talking about $100 here or
So
$1,000.
we have made the change for new employees. So in the new personnel handbook, the stipend that was $4,300 for current employees got reduced to $2,000.
Thank you.
So we did that already. And then the pension is basically not a lot of people do the 10% match. We have some people that do a 1% match. So it really varies from person to person. But that is a good benefit for sure. And it's an attractive benefit to actually get people to come here for that reason alone. So I'd hate to kind of.
Well, that's where we're raising some of their salaries to make that more competitive. So the salaries on top of a 10% match is I think 10% it's high. Like, I don't think you could find me anywhere else that matches 10%.
Yeah, and the highest,
I don't think anywhere.
No, the highest I've heard of is
Self
7.
recovery.
Yeah.
Resource recovery? Well, they
I
charge
believe
us.
they're 16%.
Oh, well, that's an inside. It's who over there.
Yeah.
Besides resource recovery, who
Like
else?
municipality wise, I think 7's the highest I've seen.
So we're 3% higher than any other municipality. It's just something I'd see what we can do.
I think that one's another good one. I think we looked at that last year's finance committee, and I think we actually can get to that number, or at least you could approximate how much that actually cost us, because you actually knew who was getting what, and I think you did a calc for us. So if that helps, maybe we can get that number again.
I mean,
at
it's
some point.
definitely, the buyback's definitely a savings for us. So instead of us paying 23,000, we're paying 4,300. So
But that's assuming that everyone's going to come back here and get health insurance.
They would.
they would.
That's what I was gonna bring up.
They
The
would,
reason
yeah.
They give the incentive is so they don't take the healthcare plan and stay on their spouses. If not, they would take the coverage. and It's
Yeah.
gonna cost 20-some
I
thousand.
mean, we'd love to have everyone on.
But if my spouse is covering my health insurance 100%, I'm not going to, if you cut me from 5,000 to 2,500, I'm not going to leave where it's paid from my spouse's health insurance at 100% to come and, the town got me 2,500, I'm going to switch health. No one's doing that. Out of spite. You really think that someone's going to leave a full paid health insurance plan?
Well, they'd have double coverage. They would have no copays because the double coverage would cover all their copays now.
I still think we can do better than 10%. Then I think, I don't know.
Well, it's an interesting topic. I was actually going to say the opposite and say, with the increase in medical, is there any school of thought where you increase the buyback to get them to not take the medical? So this is an interesting topic, but we can get into that more.
Yeah, again, and keep in mind, some of that is, dictated by the current contractual obligations. So again, we have a police contract that runs through June of 27. Local 94 runs through December of 26. So the changes that we did make that the town manager mentioned, those are all for non-union employees at this point. To get those changes pushed down to the union, it obviously would have to be a contracted.
But some of the larger
negotiation.
concern moving forward is it's not going to be sustainable, right? My house is off of Boston Street. It's nothing fancy. I don't have water access. I don't have a dock. Is my house in the middle of town going to be sustainable at a taxes of $10,000 a year? Like, we're going to have to find somewhere to be creative to say, like, okay, you're going to have to maybe pay higher in a copay. And I'm not advocating to hurt people financially, but is a house in the middle of town that's not on John, like, how are we justifying the tax bill for a house is $10,000? Like, my clients tell me, Richard, I can't buy there. I can't afford it. It puts me outside of my DTI. I just think long-term, in 5 years, 7 years, we're going to be in trouble somewhere. I don't know where it's going to be.
Well,
We
I
need
think the
business.
last
Dude, we need
place,
commercial.
the last
We've
place
been
we should
screaming.
cut, I believe, are employee benefits.
And there's not
I
much
think
to
that's-
cut. I've tried. Like, there's literally, we're nickel and diming at this point. Most of these things are outside of our control. 17% healthcare, like, we can't, litigation, we can't do anything. There's nothing we can do about it. I'm just worried, like, in 5 years or 10 years, for someone who may have retired on a fixed income, a $10,000 tax bill on a standard home. I have a spec bill. It's nothing fancy. Where is it going to go? That's all I just want us to all think that long term. That's my only concern.
That's why I think we need to get together and start trying to get some businesses in, because in big business, not small businesses, businesses like office parks, things, because right now, as far as I'm concerned, we're the taxpayers and we pay for everything. There's no revenue coming in except off our backs.
Well, a lot of that, I think, is also infrastructure. We're at a pickle here because we have to spend money to build our infrastructure. We need sewers. Big commercial is not going to go where there's not sewer, where there's no connections. But in order to invest in those things, it costs money. And it's like, okay, if we want to spend money on infrastructure, our constituents are mad that we raise their taxes. And then if we don't do that, we don't get the commercial buildings here, and we don't balance out some of the taxes between the residential and the commercial. And it's like, just you guys tell me which way to go, left or right, because that's
You're right.
kind of the
We're
pickle.
85 to 86% residential, 14% commercial.
It's high on the tax.
The sewer extension's really important, but the next area of sewer to be extended is planning areas 8 and 9, which is all residential around Tioga Lake. That's $32 million. That's
So,
going to be.
can I ask, we're having some of these builders pay for a lot of this infrastructure that's getting done. Why aren't we looking into making some tax breaks or some breaks for the businesses to come in and help us with the sewers, like we're doing for all these homes? I mean, why can't we offer them, they do it in other states, I mean, and bring in and give some business, we have no incentive for businesses to come here. We really don't. And I think that we should try to get together and figure out an incentive that's good so that we can get revenue in from, that gives jobs. It doesn't overrun schools. It doesn't hurt the fire department. I mean,
I agree. We
So,
would love commercial.
give
We
them-
were hoping that all of a sudden New England would be commercial.
so, yeah.
That's what it was intent was. Yeah.
I'm talking even office parks like they do in Burrville. I keep saying that. They have that beautiful office park that's out there. It's hidden in the woods. People walk around it during the day. It's almost like a park. But businesses aren't going to come to us unless we go scout them and give them an incentive on why they could come, because there's plenty of corporations that are looking for headquarters. But they're not going to just come here. We need a salesperson to go out and say, hey, we can do this, but we have to have a plan for that, right? No, I mean,
Yeah.
that's, to me, is having a salesperson on the road and selling Coventry, because no one, we all know they're not going to come here, and they haven't. And technically Rhode Island, I mean, I work in Boston. There's tons of headquarters that get changed all around, and they would come, and Coventry's right off the highway. It's not a bad mix from people in Providence to come up here, and then they go home.
Yeah, that's why Southern New England is booming right now for that reason. Right off the highway, and
we
the sewers are there. That's why it's growing.
On my way home, if I'm on my lunch, I run out, I grab what I have to get for the house, because I don't do it when I come home because I'm too tired. I eat there, I shop there, and then I come home to Rhode Island.
Mhm.
And I think but the first thing you hear out of companies and CEOs when you talk to them, oh, they don't give any incentives. And they're right. I mean, that's my view on it. And I think we can't keep being our own revenue. But I think we have to give some tax breaks to some businesses.
Yeah, one thing we had considered in the past that hasn't really got moving is some economic development commission to put some people on that. You know, I've seen in my travels, other cities, towns have economic development officers. So, you know, again, on one hand, that would cost you, but I think your return would be, you know, good. So, you know, something to consider as we go through this process, how we want to structure that. Did you have something, Councilman Hool?
Well, I think you have to spend money to make money. No matter what, you know, profession or whatever you're in. And I think some of to Councilwoman Ianati's point, then you know, when you're given these corporations potentially tax breaks, we're gonna get hammered for giving away, you know, our checkbooks to the developer. It's like I'm saying these things because I know the public's listening, and I'm trying to paint the picture of the position we're in. Like, what does the public want us to do? We can go out and incentivize the businesses, and we can give tax breaks, and then we're going to get crushed for doing that. We can invest in our infrastructure, and then it's going to raise the taxes, but that'll bring the corporation. We're not going to see an overnight fix. I think it's going to take us a while, and we are having some wins. We're close to finishing up Center of New England. Like, we're getting there. But I will
Right
find
now,
a
we're
dollar
breaking it.
if I can save it. But we're literally picking apart. They took $500 from the count. Like, we're talking pennies when in the grand scheme of things. And I'm open to hearing. I called Jamie LeBlanc today and I said, Jamie, like, you're a financial hawk. Where are you focusing on this? What am I missing? Right? Because I am not seeing any clear department that's like, Richard, go get him. It's hard.
It is. Councilwoman Capaldi.
Dan, whatever happened to the EDC? That's over a year that I've been waiting for it to pick up again.
Three of the members left. The council person that was assigned to that left, and then it never.
No, I was
kinda went
assigned to
going.
this new one, and Maria started. We met a couple of times
Yeah.
trying to come up with an idea and a strategy, and we had a whole bunch of ideas, and there was something to do that she said we had to wait, and then it never came back to fruition.
Yeah, I can ask her. I don't know exactly what
We
it
need
is.
we need
But
to get that.
We can put board applications out for board members.
Yeah,
that's
and
that's the
I've asked her several times.
Disconnect
and
right
it
now is
falls flat.
there's no one on there right now, I believe. So we can get that going again.
That'd be great.
Sure.
Thank you.
Councilman Hool.
I'm not too familiar with the EDC, but one of the things that I haven't heard in town, I do remember President Verducci mentioning it when I had first got on the council, was the Chamber of Commerce. I haven't heard of a working relationship between the Chamber of Commerce and the town of Coventry. And one of the ways that it was explained to me was we as council people can't go out and solicit a business. It has to go through the Chamber of Commerce. Someone correct me if I'm wrong there. We
No,
can't
still
as
the same
council
thing.
people go out and say like, hey, you know, hold up a sign that says
Yeah.
Big Lots, come here.
That's why we need that intermediary.
So the EDC would work with the Chamber of Commerce, I'm assuming, and they would be the ones to go and sell Coventry. Is that the picture in a nutshell?
But you never have used them that way. The last time JP and I saw them was an opening of the pharmacy. Yeah, and she was very excited to meet with President Verducci and myself, and we wanted to talk more, but we don't know what has happened previous to us.
My only interaction with the chamber has been ribbon cuttings.
We don't even have
and I think
any-
it's central, is it Central Rhode Island Chamber? I believe we fall on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's a spark. We can make a connection with that and get a framework together at like, you know.
Hear from Maria because she owned that bucket of. I was assigned to be the liaison, and then it just fell apart. I know Miss Boyer volunteered to be on it, and
Who?
she couldn't wait any longer because it's been taking so long. Yeah. We have never seen those bylaws.
So, yeah, with all the development and everything else, this is crucial. You know, the development comes in, you got people, where they're going to go, where are they going to shop, what are they going to, you know, so we have the framework for it. So let's kick that one around. Thank you. And we're off. Back to you, Mr. Savetti. No, it's a realistic representation of where we are. So,
Next on your agenda was the library, which is Departments 930, and then also Department 931, which is Department 931, which is the library grant and aid. Again, the director is here this evening. The proposed increase in Department 930, which is the library's primary portion of the budget, is roughly 115,000 or 9.55%. And you'll see there are some significant increases percentage-wise. Let me clarify that, percentage increases in compensation. And as we discussed last night, a big portion of that is related to the minimum wage increase. So we have a number of part-time employees where right now the library current staffing, we have 8 full-time employees, 19 to 20 part-time employees. So the library spent a considerable amount of time, and I think you've seen the level of work that a library director does. I know you like their graphs and some of those charts she put together last time. So they're very detail oriented. So she put a considerable amount of time in, along with her board, to try to look at the pay scale of all their employees. And as you have the minimum wage continue to climb, and you have employees that are been here 20, 25 years, and they were making now the same amount that a minimum wage, or that the minimum wage employee was making, there needed to be some adjustments. So that's why you see some of those significant increases. And again, the director's here that can speak to you in more detail on that if you'd like. But I think in part of the council package, you may have had an example of their pay scale, or how their pay scale was lined up. So they went through, again, spent a lot of time. The Board of Trustees over at the library reviewed that in detail with the director, and they felt that, the adjustments they're proposing are adequate. It's going to try to get everybody to the proper level, and that, that it's maintained going forward. We're not having to do these adjustments year after year as minimum wage continues to increase. Did I cover that right, Laura? Okay. I had to make sure I acknowledge
did
it,
she
'cause
bring materials?
I kept her off some of my emails earlier, so she feel like she's invisible sometimes, so she's here.
Thank you for coming. We appreciate it. Everybody who's coming tonight, we appreciate it. Councilman Hool.
I have a quick question. I believe in the library director's presentation, there was some question in there in regards to potentially an employee at the Green Library that we're bouncing up. I'm trying to, I'm curious to know how much activity the Green Library gets. It's not something I'm super familiar with. And I was wondering if our cost would be better put as a collaborative with one library versus trying to run 2. Not that I don't ever want to take away your work. So I said to JP, like, are those the library ladies? I don't want to say this. So I'm just asking, and I'm just asking.
No, that's a fair question. You asked me a question that is probably the one statistic I did not bring with me tonight. So I don't have exact numbers, but our Green Branch does a lot of programming, and actually they do more evening programs than our branch does because of the availability of the room that I'm standing in right now. We have a lot of other meetings such as this to contend with as far as evening program goes, whereas they have their own building, so they can do as much as they'd like. So actually on our previous community survey, we had about 20 different responses mentioning programming at Green is great. Why can't we have programs like that at Coventry Public Library? So our branch manager works really hard and does incredible programming there. Their numbers are fantastic considering they have such a small space. And because of all of the programs she plans, she does stay late often. And so that's part of the increase for her salary. I did an average of her hours rather than the schedule because we've been budgeting based on her schedule, and she keeps having to stay late for programs. People talk. We want them to enjoy their time at the library, but sometimes the library is supposed to be closed and the program is still going. So that is also part of her salary increase in that line. It's because it's more accurate hours so that we don't go over budget, and as well as the salary adjustment.
So, yeah. So she's basically telling us we're in here too much. which is fine. I think we
Well,
can be here less, and then we have the annex.
We have the annex space, yes. So we're really looking forward to being able to use that space, and then we don't have to worry about the scheduling conflicts and that kind of thing. Yeah.
I was amazed at how far out this room was booked the last time I checked with Dan. It's months, believe it or not. So
Yeah, our
extra
staff
space
is
will be good.
already knee deep in summer reading programming. They've already got everything scheduled. So it's not just me. We're all planners at the library. We're very organized and yeah.
And I've heard great things. I actually received a call. It was a colleague of mine, but she uses the Green Library at night and she does the adult. And she was saying like she misses some of the adult programming here, but she goes out there for it. So again, my questions are more for public education so they can understand what the Green Library does. Because if I don't know, I'm assuming that some people out there don't know.
Yeah. And I would like to say to that constituent, I'm very impressed because we actually don't share a lot of patrons between the two branches. That 20-minute drive is just too much for a lot of Rhode Islanders. So
She's right in the middle.
okay. Were there any other questions?
Anyone else? No, thank
you,
you very
ladies.
much. Thank you.
Thanks.
So in just the other portion of the library's budget, I mentioned two departments. So you have the library grant and aid, which is Department 931. And just so everybody's aware, we have revenue that directly offsets that. So through the state governor's budget, they allocate a certain amount to libraries throughout the state. We get the share. And that number, again, dictated by the state, but if we start reducing the amount we're funding from the town side, so in Department 930, that would impact the grant and aid that we get. So we always want to make sure we're not reducing their number of employees and, maintaining their budget. So somewhat similar to a maintenance of effort that we have with the school departments, we also have somewhat of the same requirement for this library.
Councilman?
And in our defense, we have not seen the income numbers yet. We've only been presented with the expenses.
Correct. Yep. Okay, and then the last department that's on your agenda this evening is the school department. So I'll highlight just the department figures that are included here for the school department, which is Department 100. And then I know superintendent's here to make a presentation on their budget. But again, some of this we talked about at the beginning when I gave some of the highlights. But again, just reiterating, so the total school proposed budget included in town's general fund is 87.2 million, which represents an increase of approximately 2.9 million or 3.48% from the fiscal 2026 approved budget. The increase in local appropriation, or what we call our maintenance of effort, is $1,045,000 or 2%, as was approved in the deficit reduction plan. The increase in the school deficit reduction funding line item, $3,000, and notation that that's not part of the maintenance of effort. So once the deficit's paid in full as our current deficit reduction plans propose, which would be after fiscal 2029, that line item obviously could be reallocated in the budget. Projected increase in state aids, roughly 1.4 million or 4.9%, again, based on the current budget submitted by the governor. Increase in school miscellaneous revenue, including Medicaid reimbursements, is 457,000. So that's a 19% increase. And when I mention that number, keep in mind that the school miscellaneous revenue, including Medicaid, as well as the state aid for education, those are amounts that get included in the town's budget. We have the revenue offset and we pass it through. So it's strictly a pass through. So if the school were not to achieve the amount of revenue they're projecting in either of those categories, then they would have to reduce their budget. They would have to make budget cuts. The only thing we're committed to funding is the maintenance of effort line item. And if the council approves, it would also be the deficit reduction line item. So those other two, again, the adjustments would have to be made. An additional item in the school department's budget, not part of maintenance of effort, not part of the 87,209 that I presented. At some point, somewhere in the history of the town of Coventry, the town the town picks up a portion of the actuary determined contribution for the school SRP personnel pension plan. So discussing with the actuaries, the school contributes, I believe, roughly 13%, and then the town makes up the difference between what the actuary says we should contribute and what the school's scheduled to contribute. So that amounts to a contribution for fiscal 2027 of $551,000, which is an increase of $90,000 from the previous fiscal year. Again, that's not anything that's part of maintenance of effort. It's a separate line item, but it's something that, again, precedes me coming to the town and something the town's been doing for a number of years. So overall, these various line items constitute an increase in the school department of roughly $3,027,000 or 3.57% from fiscal 2026. So when you look at the overall budget proposal, we proposed a budget increase of 5.8 million, of which approximately 3.3 million or 57.3% of that's related to school department. And when you look at the school department funding in this budget, the school department represents approximately 67% of the proposed 2027 budget of the town. And like I said,
Councilwoman Capaldi.
I think some of my colleagues up here tonight, I'm amazed on how much money the town pays in things that we had no idea. This ADC amount of another $500,000. Do other towns do this, or do other towns fund this type of thing to their school department?
the ones I worked with in the past, I've never seen that.
So why are we doing it? Does it make sense to do it? It's $500,000.
The town's been doing that.
I know,
prior
but
to me
because
getting
somebody's
here,
been
I'm
doing
not-
something this all the time, just because they've been doing it doesn't mean it's the right thing to do.
I agree, Councilwoman, but the council's approved this each of the years I've been here, so it's not a line item I've added in.
So
So
in-
the budget you've approved in the past had that presented in there.
So let me ask you, does it make financial sense for us to be paying this bill?
Well, the thing is,
If we-
the town, the school department doesn't have any way of generating revenue. So if we don't pay it, it gets kicked to them and then they're gonna ask it from us. You know what I mean? They don't have a way of increasing.
So how do other towns do it then?
I can't speak to that. I don't know.
So this is kind of something similar we talked about when we had the school in last time around. You know, one big bucket of money, if we don't pay it this way, they would simply ask for it in a different way to make up the difference. So again, a lot of mandates and things like that. To your point, though, I am interested to learn if this was just, you know, one of those things we continue to do because we did it. But the alternative would be, I'm assuming, and ask somewhere else in the budget to make up for that, because we wouldn't want to start messing with the ADC.
Right, again, I think what you're looking at, if you chose to not fund that, they have to pick that up in their budget, so then they're gonna look for more money on the maintenance of effort. So it's a line item that's not maintenance of effort, but it would easily be converted to there. Or if we don't fund it and they can't find ways to fund it, they're gonna run a deficit of $500,000 that we're gonna be stuck with funding in the future. So again, we can
Oh.
certainly try to dig into that and see if there was something in the charter or if there was an ordinance passed a number of years ago. And I tried reaching out to the actuary, which is Angel Pension Group, in no relation to, I didn't want to say that name, but it has nothing to do with the angel you're thinking of. So sorry, Mr. Town Manager. But again, they're an actuary. They do work throughout the state as well as other states.
Yeah, no, it's an
And
interesting
speaking,
thing.
and speaking with the actuary, that's, I was trying to get the history. I think it, precedes even Mr. Coward, the superintendent. I don't think, he was around when this was initially started. So it's something that's
Yeah.
been there for a while.
He
And
probably didn't say anything about it. He probably likes it. Oh. Yeah.
I think it originated from the town council side, because if it wasn't set aside, then it became part of maintenance of effort. And if there was variability from one year to another where it were to go down, then you would be responsible as a council to maintain the maintenance of effort level, which means you would potentially have to pay more year over year on the off years where it could go down. Like I think last year was a year, I think it was a little, correct me if I'm wrong, it was a little bit lower than you had either budgeted or it was the previous year. Maintenance of effort requires you to maintain that level. So I don't think it was a school department thing. I actually think it originated with the town. I'd like to take blame for it though, if that helps in any
All
way.
right, we will
He-
put,
He is correct, so I'm sorry.
all right, let's
if
put
you
that
look
in the
at the
record. He's
fiscal-
to blame.
The fiscal 2025 budget that was approved, the actuary contribution was set at 529,000. Fiscal 26, it was reduced to 461,000. So we had a $60,000 savings there. And now this year it's back up to the 551. So
So that's interesting.
There is
That's like a
that, right.
savings on our side.
correct.
Okay, so
So if it was part of maintenance of effort, it was part of your funding to us, you would have to maintain that level. I mean, I'd love it, but
Correct.
you'd have to maintain that
no,
level.
that
and the
actually is making a little
60,000
sense now.
would come
Yeah.
To us.
Okay. There may be a little wisdom in that, but this may be one we want to dig into on finance committee. It's big numbers. It's interesting and confusing. Did you have something, Councilman Hull?
So maintenance of effort makes me nervous, makes me anxious year over year, not knowing what our tax levy will look like, not knowing all of this. So one of the things that and I'm not going to take credit for this, but we are increasing the maintenance of effort $1 million. That's above and beyond the salary increases, correct? Because that's not included in it. That's a 600,000 for the salary. Because the total school department was asked was like 3%, a little over 3%. I think it was like 1.25 for the salaries, and then
So all that's built into our total ask.
that's
right?
what I'm asking.
So the salaries, the benefits,
But
everything is built in.
It says increase in local appropriation maintenance of effort, $1,045,210 or 2%. My question to Mr. Savetti is, how can we give them this money without increasing the maintenance of effort when I don't know what next year will bring? So why can't we put some of that into the CPI account?
We did that last year.
And I had a conversation, I'm bringing this back up, so,
Yep.
just so the public is aware of this. I approached Mr. Savetti before the council meeting started and asked him this question. And he explained, obviously, Mr. Coward, they would just move some money around and it would all still end up be the same. The one different factor would be it doesn't increase his MOE. So the money still goes, but we're not guaranteed to have to still meet that same number next year. Things could change. I'm not looking to increase the MOE by 2% or $1 million. So if we can, why can't we split that 50-50? We give him 500,000 towards the maintenance of effort and we put 500,000 to maintain the capital improvements. Right?
Yeah, again, I guess you could do that, right? So it was done, as you mentioned, Councilwoman, a year or 2 years ago, where what ended up happening is some of their maintenance personnel, their salaries and those items just got moved into the capital section. So it wasn't as if it was for capital. It's still for operating costs. So now all you're doing is shifting some of their operating costs from the MOE into a capital line item that if you remove that, you're basically giving them a structural deficit. You're not funding a capital item. Those are the items you would want to pull out. So if in his budget this year, he had $1 million or $500,000 to do a new roof, we would want to break that out, put that as a capital item. They don't have that. Everything in this budget is related to operations because they currently have their $25 million bond that they're doing roof repairs, HVAC systems, all those items. So
But
I
the
think
only-
you're just creating a structural deficit if you do that. And it's something that's eventually going to catch up to you, whether it's the next year or the
do you
year
know what
after.
the percentage was last year for 2026? This year we're up to approximately 67% of the budget for 27. Do you know what percentage we were last year?
Historically, it's been right there, 65 to 67% of the budget.
Well, 65 to 67 is different because that just
Wow.
we're trending upward. I'm trying to see what the trajectory is. Like 5 years ago, where we at 50 and
It's
now we're
no, you've been consistently at 60.
it's all around. It
You've been
stays around this.
consistently 66, 67. Yes.
Councilwoman
So
Capaldi?
If they move the operation stuff into this CPI budget, the benefit is that we don't have to increase the MOE the same amount next year if we take 500,000 out and we put it into the capital improvement plan. So how would that be a deficit? I mean, they're using it.
Right, but if you don't fund it the next year, you're gonna have a built-in deficit. You either have to keep funding this, so now you have to fund the CIP every year at that 500,000, plus still keep their maintenance of effort, so you're just funding it in a separate line item. If
So
you
if we-
stop funding CIP in the next year, you have a built-in deficit. Again, if you were taking an HVAC system out and funding it, and I would highly recommend that. If they have a major capital improvement, I would say you put it as a capital line item. I've done it in other communities I've worked in where you break it out as a separate line item, so it's not part of maintenance and, maintenance of effort. But when you're just gonna take maintenance salaries, regular operating costs and put into a CIP account, once you cut that, you have a built-in
This
deficit.
looks like one-time savings, but now you made me think the bonds do not count towards maintenance of effort, or the interest does not?
No, they do not.
Okay.
It
So in a
count-
way,
bonds will count towards their maintenance requirement, not maintenance of effort. So
right.
there's a maintenance requirement where they have to make sure they're spending, I believe, 3% on maintaining their buildings, 3% of their budget. So we can count that portion towards there, which is going to help them over the next 25 years with the bond repayment schedule, but it's not part of maintenance of effort.
but in a way, it's us kind of doing what we're talking about, but just on a much bigger level where we're taking a lot of that off of them to be able to do it through the bonds, because otherwise this could go on for 25 years at these little pieces. So just another way to think about it.
Yeah, and just so the council knows too, the 2% that we're giving them is also part of the 5-year plan and the deficit reduction plan that was already approved by the Auditor General that we told them we're going to do. So if we kind of
I didn't vote
go
yes
in
for
a
that.
different direction, then we would have to change the 5-year plan and the deficit reduction plan.
Mrs. Sveti, what are the line items under the MOE? What's that money going to?
Again, the superintendent and Chris DeVerne, the business manager, they're here tonight to present their entire budget, so they can go through that detail, but that's everything. It's, again, you got the MOE, which is 53 million, the state aid's 30 million. Divvy it up however you want. They have a total budget of roughly 87, I believe it's 87.7 million when we look at their detail and its salaries, but they're not required to tell the state, okay, we're paying, Chris's salary out of MOE, Don's salary out of the state aid. But I'll let them, at this point, I think be a good time for them to come forward and present their budget so that they can answer that question in more detail.
Thank you very much, Director. Welcome again. We didn't welcome you before, Superintendent Cowart. Appreciate it.
Happy to be here. I appreciate the opportunity. So I sent over a number of documents. I don't know what you received. I don't know what you've already reviewed. I sent over our budget summary. I sent over the budget detail for the salaries, the budget detail for the benefits. I also sent in, it was kind of a lengthy, it was a link really for, no, actually, I think I sent you the actual document for all of our operation costs. I also sent you our budget book that we create every year. I know you have a lot to read. I know you have a lot to look at, but if you ever get a chance to look at the budget book, we've been doing it this way for the last 4 years. And I think to some of the questions that sometimes come up in terms of what the funding is for and what it does for the community, this budget book actually explains all of that, right? It's not just a spreadsheet with the numbers, here's the revenue, here's the expenses, that's it. It goes over everything that we do in the school department, everything we do for the kids in Coventry. So I'm going to go through this presentation. It's not long, and I'll glide through it because I don't want to take a lot of time. And if you want me to stop someplace, I will. We typically start presentations with a mission statement. I'm not going to read all that, and we also talk about our initiatives. Yes, they have it. Do you have the presentation? Thanks. Yeah, it's a good question. Yep, that's it. So on that cover page where it says budget, that's a hyperlink. If you ever want to click on that link, it will take you right into the big document. And if this is on the, the town's page, any resident can take that and click on it. Next page is our mission statement. We read this at every school committee meeting. We try to lead every presentation with it. It basically kind of defines who we are and what we do. Because we've been in such a tricky situation for the last number of years, we spend a lot of time talking about our budgets and rightfully so. But, we have priorities that have to do with making sure our students are ready to be, productive citizens in society. And we want to make sure we don't lose track of that. In terms of our 4 big sort of like strategic goal areas, we have to improve achievement in ELA, math, social studies, and science. We're trying to enhance supports for the economically disadvantaged and differently abled students. We're trying to build engaging, responsible school communities, and we're trying to establish long-term systems for financial and capital improvement. I have a bunch of sheets here that kind of give you some numbers, it's kind of like Coventry schools by the numbers. So all our schools are rated. We have up to 5-star ratings. At this point, all our schools are either 3, 4, and we have one school that's a 2-star school. Sometimes when you look at the ratings and you wonder what makes a school higher or lower, a lot of times it has to do with a particular subgroup. We have students in our school department that are coming in with a variety of challenges, and those subgroups have to overcome those challenges, and sometimes that results in us trying to do things that help them get to where they need to be, and it takes a little bit longer. We also have our proficiency ratings and our performance overview. We're up in ELA, we're down slightly in math, we're down slightly in science. We are,
Excuse me, Superintendent?
yes.
You're not on the same page that he's talking
Yeah,
about.
you can click ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah, go one more. There we go. I'll say next page. I apologize for that. Usually I'm doing it myself. So we are up in ELA. We're down a little bit in science and math. Our chronic absenteeism is down. Our graduation rate is up, and our secondary, post-secondary data is heading in the right direction. I also pulled in, next slide, please. I also pulled in some enrollment data because I know there was a question about enrollment and what's going on in the school district. So this is a 10-year look. It goes back. It's actually 20 years. It goes back 10, it goes forward 10. Our current enrollment as of the day I printed this sheet was 4,210 kids. If you look at this graph that's above, it breaks our school into 3 different levels. So the top level is elementary, and then the middle level is the high school, and the bottom one, I believe, is the middle school. And if you look at the 10 years prior to now, you'll see that the school department basically has experienced a drop in enrollment pretty much at every level, except for the high school kind of holding its own. I mean, the middle school holding its own. But you can see going forward the next 10 years, they're projecting us to be fairly stable. So they're not anticipating any more drops. If you wonder how this data is built, because I didn't build it, we contract with NESDEC to do this. We provide them information from the planning department in terms of different developments going on in the community. They look at birth rate data. They look at our enrollment data. They look at neighboring communities. So it's a complicated process, but this isn't always 100% nailed down. Even though it says in the next 10 years we're flat, we could go up, we could go down. It's just a prediction. But the next slide has to do with our per pupil rate. So this is important information. If you look at this slide, I only gave you the top half, but if you go into our budget binder, we have the whole thing. What the state of Rhode Island does is they calculate a per pupil expenditure, and your per pupil expenditure basically is how much you spend as an organization on each individual student. And then we are ranked by our per pupil. Communities with higher per pupil rates usually have higher budgets. Sometimes from more affluent communities where the tax base is stronger. Some places that have lower per pupil, sometimes they have smaller budgets or the tax base is different. Coventry has been in the top third pretty much consistently of the traditional public schools. And I highlighted them sort of like I guess it's like a purplish color. I did not highlight the charter schools because the charter schools have a variety of different variables that we don't have, and it's like an apples to oranges comparison. So our per pupil is below the 10 districts that you see, but we're number 11 out of 33. So that makes us fairly competitive, almost like the middle of the pack. I feel like if your per pupil is too low, then you're not spending enough money on your students and you're risking falling behind. And if we're spending too much, then obviously it inflates your budget.
Mr. Carwood, if I may?
Yes.
Cumberland, 4,821. It looks like their total per pupil cost is $17,011.
They have one of the lowest. Yep.
And ours is higher
Yes.
at 20. I want to correct the record because you stated that we were lower than the ones that you highlighted, correct? Except for
Oh, excuse me.
Cumberland.
They're lower than us.
Okay.
I reversed
I
it.
just want to make sure.
Everybody above that line is lower than us. Anybody below, which is in the document I gave you, is higher than us. So we're number 11.
Thank you.
I'm glad. I'm happy to clarify that was a mistake there. Next page is
While
about,
we're on that one, just a quick
Yes.
question. I'm sure you don't have it. It just kind of came to me.
Mhm.
Is there any way to break that out to like state mandates versus, you know?
well, that's why I separate the traditionals from the charters, because what the charters are dealing with and what the traditional high schools deal with are different. And a lot of the unfunded mandates, a lot of the things that we have to take on that escalate costs, some of the charter schools don't have to deal with. And so I want it to be an apples to apples, not an apples to oranges.
But it would be nice to, sorry to jump in. It'd be nice to know like what makes up that 21,484. Like
Yeah.
how much of that is state mandated, how much of that is salary, how much of that is textbooks. Like
Yep.
what is
It's all of it. So they take our entire operating budget and they divide it by the number of students we have simply. I mean, it's probably a little bit more tweaking to it, but simply is our entire budget divided by the number of kids. This is your per pupil costs based on that.
you don't know as a superintendent what that cost is per child broken down?
Well, I mean, I guess I don't know exactly what you're saying.
Like
So-
I source my work backwards at
Mhm.
the end of the year, right? Like here's where, and I can find it
Sure.
going backwards.
yeah,
It's like,
that's
okay,
yeah, I can answer that question easy. It's salaries, it's benefits, it's everything in the operation.
but do you know what? Like out of 21,000 is 5,000 salaries, 8,000 recreation. Like what?
I could break that out.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not a hard thing.
I think it's easier to understand.
Yeah, that's not a hard thing. to
Because
do.
I
Based
look
on
at-
that, it seems like you would just take the percent of the expenditures
Mhm.
and then break down the 22,000.
Yeah, you can do that. That's not a
Yeah.
hard thing.
And
to
then
do.
from there, you could flag and identify what state mandated the curriculum, you know,
Mhm.
stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah.
And textbooks like
Yeah, and actually, I'm going to get into that a
transportation.
little bit later on in
Yeah.
terms of what like the purchase services, which is where a lot of the unfunded mandates are sitting.
And because a lot of this, I think, will help when we go back and forth about budgets and we talking about getting our state legislative. Like, there's a lot of fees that we have no option that I think we can do a lot better on. But we have to collaboratively work at a state level with it. So when you see these, it's easier to be like, okay, Mr. Cowett, here's where I think we can work collaboratively to attack that. Because like, you know, we end up going back and forth as a council and a school committee when really if we just focused our energy to changing at the state level, we'd have a lot more control back on
Yeah,
how
yeah,
we
yeah.
control
We're speaking
our
the same language. I said to the finance director and manager for the last few years, this has been the most sort of collaborative budgeting process. And I think a lot of it has to do with us trying to navigate our deficit reduction, but it also hasn't been one of these situations where I am coming in a position looking for more than you're willing to give. And then I'm being asked to defend things that are beyond my control. But for the last few years, last year in particular, the council was really sort of open and understanding to the number of mandates that are given to us that I have no control over. I can't say no to any of them. They're part of the law. They're part of the regulation. They have to be done. And so I can do what I can to try to reduce them by being creative, but I can't eliminate them. And I
That's
actually
what I
have
mean.
them in
We
it.
can cut all day long. It's not going to change it.
Right.
Right. So I'm just
Right.
saying, like, let's literally stop having the conversation. Let's figure out a way
Mhm.
to use our state legislators
Mhm.
to fix this, at least something.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're going to do this again next year and we're going to have the same conversation. Mr. Cowett, let's get a hold of it.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't want to stop talking about it and let's
Yeah.
like gain some traction.
Yeah.
Let me know what
Yeah.
you need.
Yep.
And let's,
Councilwoman Ionati.
So, the purchase services department,
Mhm.
sorry about that. I was wondering, are we able to, like the exact category, are we able to, that's like buses, correct?
It's a lot of things,
It's
but
not
that's in
busing.
there.
So could we like I know that doing in other towns, they're doing the community share with the buses.
Mhm.
Have we looked into doing that? Because we're in, what are we, in 2 or 3, a category of where we are for schools? What was that, 2, I think?
For
For
what?
region, for region.
Oh, what zone are we in?
Yeah.
I'm not sure what zone we're
Well, I
in.
know a lot of towns are doing that, so I didn't know if we looked into it, because that would cut down a lot of cost.
So
We're able to.
I can get there,
budget.
but I'll give you sort of like a little preview. So 2 things. One is the school committee approved, it was small money to have our transportation, all of our local sort of contracted transportation reviewed and go through an audit process, and to look at duplicity in terms of bus runs,
Right.
and also to look at ridership and capacity. How many kids are on buses? How many seats are open? How many seats are being used? How long are the runs? Is there opportunities for improvement? We're just getting those results back, and we're going to
They're
use
in
those.
bid now, correct? The buses?
They
Bus
finished.
tracks?
Ours just finished.
Okay.
We also have available to us for the regions, right, our different transportation zones. We also have available to us statewide transportation. Statewide transportation is expensive. So what we've done, which I think has helped us quite a bit, is we've been purchasing minivans so that we can transport our own kids and we don't have to be tied to the statewide cost share. And so what we did is we purchased, we purchased one. The town used ARPA money to purchase 2, I believe, a few years ago, and then we just bought 2 more. So we have 5 minivans, and we pick up all our homeless and all of our ESSA, which are foster kids, with our own minivan. So we don't use statewide for any of that. We don't do any of that. For Pontiac, where we have some kids go to out of district, we use our own bus to do that. We don't participate in statewide. And then for Hendricken, we used to use our own bus, and then we found out from RIDE that we would be eligible for a reimbursement if we did use statewide. So in that particular case, we opted in. So that's why I said, like, there's a lot of mandates, but I try to find ways to be creative so that we can maximize the return wherever it is.
Okay. So with the bus share, did it save anything? What was the savings with bus sharing?
So statewide's pretty expensive, and so I can't give you the exact number we've reduced because we've been slowly kind of picking at it. Every time we buy a minivan, we've taken more kids off. I just know that we have a number of kids that do not participate in statewide at all, and that's been a savings to us. Also, our labor costs, because they're Coventry employees, they're not Ocean State employees, so they're part of our negotiating group. So we negotiate with them.
Okay.
There is an opportunity coming down the pike, because we participated in this audit, that other communities that also participate in audit, that may be neighboring communities, there could be an opportunity to overlap and share.
That's what-
Not statewide, but like, I'll use West Warwick. Let's say West Warwick and Coventry have participated in this audit, and they've realized that, actually, West Warwick's a great example. Harris is essentially in West Warwick, right?
Right.
If we, this is for instance, this is not a real thing, but if we had an opportunity to share, West Warwick could say, listen, we have a bus, it's half empty, those kids go to, let's say, Black Rock, we could go over, do that, drop off. If you go over to this place, pick these kids up and drop off, and then we're working with each other. So,
They are doing that now.
well, we're not doing anything
Not
right
us.
now.
We aren't, but other towns are doing that.
I don't know if anybody's doing it yet. I just know there's conversations about it.
There is.
The only towns I know of that are collaborating are towns in the Northwest region. They came together for negotiation. So Burrville, I think North Smithfield, they negotiated, because they're all small districts, they negotiated with their contracted, as a unit.
Right, and that was my thought process
Mm-hmm.
on that.
Yeah. The next slide, if you don't mind. This is just our AP scores. We're proud of this. Our participation in scores go up every year. The money that the town sets aside for the school department is put to good use, and our kids are going to great colleges. They're getting great jobs, and the AP scores sort of reflect the fact that the number of kids participating and the number of kids who are getting a 3 or better is getting better every single year, and we're very proud of that. Next slide, please. So in terms of revenue, if you look at the yellow section across the top, that's the local appropriation. In 2025, we got 0.99 from the town. I think that's the year we also had the offset with the CIP. And then the next year, which was the year we're in right now, we got 2.42, and then we're projected to get 2% for 27. And that kind of shows you sort of where we're put out on that. And then our state aid was 5.93%. And then 5.93%, and now it's looking to go up about 3.8%. And at the end of the session, and I know this is unfavorable in terms of timing because you've already done your budget. So this is not a Don Coward thing, but at the end of the session, sometimes money also gets allocated in state aid. We've tried to, if we need the money for operations, clearly we're going to use it for operations. In the past, we've also earmarked funding that came late in the session for doors and cameras and security items that we needed but didn't have a funding source for. And then I also highlighted in red, that's the money that this town is giving us for the
You wanna
deficit
go back
reduction.
to his last point. Yeah, it's the timing of when these budgets get actually passed. We've already passed ours. Then the legislature may make a slight tweak to what we get as an amount, if I'm explaining this correctly. And then if you want to pick up right there,
Yeah.
what he does with the money.
So 1 year, it's not even on this page. At the end of the session, the budget in Coventry had already been passed, and it was in June, and we had $900,000 additional of state aid come in. That particular year, we used the $900,000 to pay for doors and cameras that we needed for security. It was right after Uvalde, I think. Some years when we get that additional money, then we're able to use it in part of our operations, especially if we're running running over in class sizes and we need to add like a teacher. Typically, it's not a lot, but if we do. Last year was kind of a tough year because they gave us more money, which was good, but it was also an increase to the COLA and to the retirement contribution. So it ended up being a wash. We got a little bit more money in state aid, but then we were required to pay more money out towards the retirement system. So we really didn't pick up anything in addition.
And the danger of that is it could swing the other way as well.
Correct.
So it looks like you went a little bit lower on your projected increase. You know, it looks like the last couple of years we were at 6, now we're 3.8.
Well, the
5.
3.8 is built on what the governor proposed, right?
Well,
In other years, it's what we actually got.
Expect it to go up or down. That's just what we're in a holding pattern on now, but timing of it is
Yeah.
good.
The only problem, I understand we can't control what the state does. The problem that I have is we have to pass a budget giving them X amount of money. They get a surplus, we get kicked. Right? Like if they have a surplus from the state, why doesn't that come back? If we're approving,
No,
like, can
so
I
again-
approve their budget contingent upon that? And
No, generally, again, all the state aid for education has to get passed through to the school department.
Yep.
So we have no control over that.
no, but they can give us back our 900,000. Like, how do we protect? And just because he just stated that it would just go for operating, so we're not taking 900K. I'm just gonna say I don't know if that's the real number, but whatever the number Mr. Coward just said is gonna stay for operating, which is what? That's salaries. That's not school improvements. That's not extracurricular activities for the kids.
It could be though.
But it's not. You just said you use it for operating.
Well, I gave an example. Operating is everything, right?
But
Everything
do
is
you
operating.
would you normally,
It depends on how much we get.
what did you use the 900,000 for that you were over last time?
Doors and
You
cameras.
just said that, sorry.
So again, if you look at like last year, right? And I think part of the question is, the superintendent's indicating that a projected increase in state aid this year or for fiscal 27's 3.85%. I said it's 4.9%. I'm using 4.9% based off of the budget that was approved by the council. So fiscal 26 state aid for education, which was approved by the council, was 29,186,000. The state actually funded 29,482,000. So there was roughly 300,000 of additional state aid that came in after this budget was approved. Again, town's budget's approved beginning of May. State budget's not approved till the end of June. That 386,000, this council, I guess you could have said, we want to reduce the extra $1 million we gave them in maintenance of effort by that 300,000. They just would have been left in a shortfall because, as the superintendent indicated, although they got an additional 300,000, they were also hit last minute that their contributions to the pension plans were going up. So that extra 300,000 got washed through to pay their pensions. So again, if it was a $900,000 amount, you certainly, if we're only giving them, a $900,000 increase, you couldn't reduce your maintenance of effort because you had to maintain from the previous year. So what you could look at is certainly say, okay, if they're presenting this budget tonight based on what the state's saying they're funding, if the state provides more, you could say, we want you to live within this budget. If you're proposing a budget saying you can live within this budget, if the state turns around, and gives you an extra 300,000, we'd like to see you finish with a surplus of that extra 300,000.
I would have
Not spend
assumed
it.
that that was normal procedure. Like, why is anybody spending above an approved budget?
Again, we
Especially
can't-
at upwards of $300,000 without some type of, hey, like rubber stamp, or hey, we're taking a vote. Right? If I give you a budget, I give you a budget. It doesn't matter
Yeah,
what.
we can't control the state aid for education. So
And
that state aid for
When the
education
money
goes
comes
through.
in,
Hold on one
do
second.
you tell us?
I'm not on the General Assembly. It's in June.
As
What-
soon
what
as the budget's
questions are-
approved. So last year, I believe the state budget was approved maybe June 15th, June 16th. So as soon as that comes in, we know what that is, but this council's never revised the budget.
Mm.
Again, if that number came in $500,000 less than anticipated, the school department has
Yeah.
to reduce their budget by
And-
We're
$500,000.
talking about a swap of local aid with state aid. Go ahead,
Can't do.
Vice President Brown.
Maybe what they talked about earlier is putting that 500,000 into CIP. And then if they get an increase, well, then they don't have to touch their CIP.
Provided CIP is not used for operating.
Right. And then it's not maintenance of effort.
Like that.
I don't, so, I want to ask, so if the money's coming from the state through the town to the school department, and the school department has their own fiduciary requirement, can this town then tell the school that they have to use state aid in a particular manner? No.
We can't, my understanding of state law, and the solicitor can confirm, we have no control over how you spend the money. This
Yeah.
council appropriates the funds, and then you spend it how, or the school committee spends how they seem fit. We have no control over the spending, and definitely state aid for education, we can't reduce that. Whatever you get from the state, you have the ability to spend as you determine.
Yeah, and I would just say this because I think it's important. We're different than the other departments because we have our own board, our own law, Title 16. We have our own fiduciary process, and so even though the funding comes through the state, comes through the town, and any other federal dollars, the school committee still retains responsibility in terms of how the money is spent. That's just part of the law. That's not something we do because we have, lots of time to come up with things to do. It's the law. I would also say that when you think about what is coming from the town to the school or from the state from the school, and don't take this the wrong way, I would love to change the narrative in the conversation so it's not us and they. And I'm not saying that because I have hurt feelings, I have thick skin. I just think it's not good for the community when we're always talking about us and they, because then people think it's always adversarial, and it doesn't have to be. That's just my own opinion. Don't like it, you can do whatever you want. You're the council. Can I keep going?
So can I ask you about the internal service fund?
Mhm.
Because we didn't use it, and now we have it down at 500, and that's the healthcare, right? Am I right on that? The healthcare?
Don, I
Right.
can explain that.
Oh,
if you want.
what's that?
Want me to?
Yeah,
explain
yeah.
that? So that's part of this past year, the school department switched from, they had their healthcare provided by WB Community Health. They switched over to the trust. So there's currently projected to be approximately $1 million in fund balance in that internal service fund, where rather than bringing it all within 1 year, that's part of their deficit reduction plan. They're going to utilize that fund balance to help supplement their budget to reduce the deficit
Okay,
reduction.
but then in 2024, it showed that it lost $1 million. Am I right? From last time, in the last budget, 2024? So it lost
I
a
don't
million,
believe so.
million and a half million? Because it exceeded the premiums? And now we have it in the internal services. So isn't that transfer going to put us in a future short hold?
I don't see where
Yeah,
you're
I don't
seeing
know
the $1
what the-
million.
When I was looking through the budget numbers in 2024, and then we were down, because it doesn't, because you only went to 2025, but I went to 24, because I wondered why we never used this line, so I was looking for when we used it last, and it was 2024.
Was that because we,
And then I
well,
know you
because the
switched it.
accumulated deficit from 23, 22, 23, 24, did it land in that line as a deficit? I'm asking, I don't know. I don't have the document
I
in front
don't-
of me.
Yeah.
I'd have to see what you're referring to because they've never used money from their internal service fund to help supplement the operating budget.
So
That's
the
something new
the
this year.
was, $1.5 million because it exceeded premiums. So what's the current balance now? My point is, why do we have it in that bucket? Are we using that money and down the road, is it going to make us in deficit again?
No, and that's why we're presenting it the way we are. They're still budgeting 100% of the premiums, what they anticipate, but they're just not going to pay 100% of the premiums. Instead, they're going to use the internal service fund to cover $500,000 of those premiums so that we avoid a deficit, a built-in deficit.
Okay, so we won't be in deficit.
No.
Okay, I'll hold you to that.
Next,
Related to this,
Yeah,
next
not
slide,
anything
please.
else.
too related to this.
Next slide, please. This just quickly shows sort of where our money comes from. I know there was conversation earlier about like where your money goes. This is where our money comes from. About 62% come from local, 32 and change from state. And then we have some federal funding sources, other financial sources, and that's our total. So that's where our money comes from. Next slide, please. So this slide, I'm going to kind of talk about expenses and revenue together. If you don't mind, I'd have you look at the bottom first. On the bottom, this is all about where we have money coming in and coming out in relation to tuition. And so we are taking in tuition for our pre-K. And you can see from 23 to 24, from 24 to 25, and we're projected for 26. So we're taking in more tuition from pre-K. So that's positive revenue. In terms of other tuition for CTE coming in 23, we brought in 930. In 24, we brought in 889. In 25, it jumped up to 1,198,000. And then we're projected to bring in 1.248 million this year. So what I'm trying to show you there is there's been a lot of effort on the revenue side to increase. We increased Medicaid, and we're working hard to increase the tuition. Now, the downside is the expense, and this goes to what was said earlier about unfunded mandates. So there's a law that says CTE students can go to other local districts for CTE programming. In 23, it was $1.6 million. In 24, it was $1.8 million. In 25, it was $2 million. And then we're projecting for 26, $2.1 million. Those are kids who go to other districts for CTE programming. I don't have the 27 numbers in front of me yet because the kids are still enrolling. But when I get that, I'm very hopeful that that number will be lower.
Councilman Hu?
If I may. So what I'm seeing here is the CTE is increasing, but I'm trying to see if there's a correlation there between the graph with the like the attendance graph. So I see like attendance sometimes is going down and then seems to like flatten out, but CTE is increasing. Does this just mean like that we're seeing an influx of kids that we already have here going out, or is it kind of
Yeah, so I'll explain. These are 8th graders
okay?
or homeschool kids who in 9th grade decide they want, or their parents decide with them that they want to go to a CTE program in another public school. And in Rhode Island, the money follows the child. So we pay tuition for that child to go to that district. And they're Coventry residents. They're mostly Coventry students. This year, the number of requests for kids to go to other local CTE programs is much lower than it's been in the past. So we're anticipating that to go down. And the number of kids who registered to come to our CTE programming has gone up. So we're expecting the revenue one to go up, which will help us offset some of the expense connected to CTE expenses.
All right, we got hands. I think I saw Councilwoman Ionati first.
So that's good news, and that's what I wanted to ask. Did we look into programs that they were leaving for, and did we incorporate them here? So
Yeah.
that we can keep the students here?
That's a great question. The school committee asks this question all the time too. So the capacity, you can only run so many programs. We cannot run everything that exists. it's just impossible. So there are some programs that we don't run that kids go to. Often those are programs that are expensive to set up or they're expensive to run. And so we choose not to run them. But in Rhode Island, there's also a law that says that the Department of Ed has to determine that a program is what they call substantially similar for you to deny them going for a program that you have. So if I have a computer program that's computer IT and another district has computer IT, unless RIDE has said we're substantially similar, they get to leave Coventry and go to that district for a program that we have, and I can't say anything about it, do anything about it. And there's very few programs in the state right now that are substantially similar, which is why so many kids are going to so many different places, because most schools have the same programs. There's only a handful of variations from place to place, but most schools have the same program. We actually have really great programs because we're originally a regional center. So we have culinary, we have automotive, we have welding, we have programs that are often expensive to set up, and other districts will say, we're not going to put in a automotive, a 3-bay, mechanic shop. We can't afford that. So we're lucky on that side. But if there's a program that some kids are going to, and we think we can make it work, and we can build it without it, putting us in a deficit situation, then we've explored that too.
So have we looked at what programs are running? I know that you have, but compared them on what percentage of kids are going to what program? And even if we couldn't afford it, if we did build it and we have the kids come, wouldn't we be making more money back eventually with that program?
Yeah, so the whole calculation also has to do with the offset of the cost of running the program, right? So you got to pay for an instructor.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to pay for an assistant. You have to pay for materials, supplies. And so you have to look at the offset of, like, if I have 3 kids going to a district for a program and that's costing us, let's say, $60,000, and for me to run the same program here is going to cost me $200,000, I'm not going to do that investment because it doesn't make sense.
But after the years, maybe it would. It's like the cost of doing business is basically you need to spend money in the beginning to open up a business, and then you get the revenue at the end.
Right, but because it's not predictable, I can't guarantee that, right? So I'll give you a good example. We have an ROTC program. We're very, very proud of it. Our ROTC program has not had strong numbers for the last few years. We haven't closed it because we've been very proud of it. We've been trying to attract kids to come to it, but the numbers are inconsistent, and I'm not sure why. Maybe kids are just not interested. If I were to build a program, a different program that kids are going to, and invest the money year over year over year, I may never see the return on that investment. And so because we're in a deficit position and because we're trying to maintain a balanced budget, I don't want to be overzealous and risking outlay of funds for things that I don't have a guaranteed return on. I'd rather get us in a positive position and then explore those.
Okay,
those
because I was
options.
also thinking, do we monitor the trend? So if you're seeing ROTC slowly dwindling out, shouldn't we be ahead of that curve?
Oh,
And
yeah.
say we need to, think about closing ROTC. We can't keep doing the same thing over and over and getting
yeah,
less results.
Yeah, we've done that. Yes, we've closed programs, and some of them I'm not happy about. Like, we closed our education program because a lot of kids don't want to go into teaching right now, and the program just got smaller and smaller and smaller, and eventually we cut it. Now the backside of that is somebody else is running education, so now we have kids going for education.
But and
All right, we got to spread it out a little bit. Councilwoman Capaldi?
okay. So
I think I've met you now for 3 sessions on budget, and totally commending you guys on your CTE program. Coventry High School has one of the best CTE programs around, so hats off to you. I wanted to let the council know I've invited Mr. Chase to come and do a presentation here so everyone can learn about the great programs that they have, which I think is great. But I always ask you, you need an animal science class there. You definitely do. And I know I see smiles over there. We need animal science.
Yeah, it's come up a few times. We definitely can look into it. We just have to figure out where we would put it and how we would staff it. We actually have a few other things in the hopper that we're working on, And so we don't want to dilute ourselves too much because then you're,
Morris, you know, that's my
Yeah.
passion. So
I know,
I
I know.
think it would, just knowing after
Mm.
COVID, there's a need for veterinarians, and there's a lot of kids going to vet school, and it'd be great to have it. I think Pontiac has it, right?
I don't talk about other districts, but yeah. I don't want to promote anybody else. The rest of this slide, I actually think is probably even more damning. So that, yes, we're dealing with the out of district tuition thing. Special ed costs are escalating at a pace that is very difficult for us to keep up with. And there's not a lot of options for that. There's not a lot of out of district placements. There's a cost associated with the enrollment of kids going to these placements, and it goes up 5 to 10% every year, and we can't control it. We've built some internal programs that are our programs in the schools, but the out-of-district tuitions for special ed is high. I've said this before, I'm not going to beat a dead horse, but if you look at DCYF, it's escalated quite a bit over the years. The DCYF costs are very expensive. And then we have charter school costs that are actually been fairly stable, but we've seen a little bit of a reduction there as well. Next slide, please. In terms of unfunded mandates, I'm not going to read all these words, but just here's some examples. There was a right to read legislation that came out 2 years ago. We were required to do a ton of PD with our teachers. It cost us like $100,000. There's a high quality curriculum legislation for ELA, math, science, and social studies that requires us not only to pick new curriculum, but it has to meet certain requirements in terms of high quality. And anytime you do curriculum work, it's expensive, not only to purchase the curriculum, implement the curriculum, and then train your people. That's a law. I don't have any option there. Transportation, we transport kids that are in our zone for CTE. We transport all our special kids, special education kids, and then we transport foster and homeless. And I told you before, we're using our vans. We transport for career and tech charter schools, special education busing, DCYF tuitions, and then any professional development. And that's just a few bullets. There's hundreds of unfunded mandates that are laws that they pass down that we have to implement without any additional funding. Next slide, please. In terms of expenditure breakdown, this is just in this current budget. Our curriculum is going to cost us $806,000 this year. Our technology investment is going to cost us $760,000 this year. Transportation is going to cost us $5,663,000 this year. Career and tech school choice is $2 million. Special ed tuitions to other other outplacements, $2 million. DCYF, $776,000. Charter schools, $656,000. And all of these things are mandated things. None of these things are things that we could just say, we're not doing that one. And then the salaries and benefits, you're familiar with this because we talked about this a lot. This is the salary and benefit costs to the district. I will mention, and I know it came up earlier with the benefit cost changes with the trust. So we got our email from the trust yesterday at 1 o'clock. And so we budgeted 7.5 for health and it went up to 14.5. We budgeted 2 for dental and it went up to 5.5. So Chris worked on what that cost would be in terms of the increase, and it's an increase of about $500,000 to our budget that is not built into the budget I just showed you. So we're gonna have to go back, retool, and find a way to fund that, which kind of goes back to what we were saying before about even though state aid sometimes gives us a little boost in the end, there's almost always something that comes up that we have to spend the money on. It's not like it's nice to haves, it's always have to haves. And so an example of something that comes up that you have no control over is your, health care going up by double digits. Nobody planned for that. Next slide, please. Expenditure breakdown. This just kind of breaks down what we spend our money on. We spend about 600, well, let me back up. Our salaries went up by about 1.2%. Our benefits went up by actually this is wrong because we just changed this. Our benefits went up by 4.88%. Our purchase services, which is all the stuff that I just told you that's in that unfunded mandate line, went up to 8%. Supplies and materials went up 5%. Furniture and equipment, which is mostly technology, went up 11%. Decrease in fees and dues. School lunch deficit transfers. So we run a deficit in school lunches almost every year. And to offset that deficit, we have to transfer money from our operation budget into our school lunch fund. And then we have an appropriation, our share of the deficit reduction plan. So those are our expenditures. Almost done. I can tell I wore you out. So essentially what we've done is kind of held the line on all of our accounts. We trimmed some administrative accounts, discretionary accounts. We were trying to be fairly conservative on what we would increase them by. Our operation budget went up by about 8%, which is kind of typical to what we've done year over year. It originally was over that, and we trimmed it back. And our projected change from 26 to 27 is the 2,824,000, which is 3.3%, but that does not include the new healthcare costs. I hit the gas at the end because I could tell.
Mr. Surveyor, really quick, if I may, salaries go towards the MOE, so we're looking at 1.25%. One of the things I brought up when that contract came up was nobody was discussing in addition to the employee benefits, which make that 609 almost $1 million. My question moving forward is, we're already gonna be looking at an increase in the MOE for 2027, 2028 because of the 3-year contract that passed. But this budget for the school is only going to increase for the next 2 years above and beyond this already, just due to the fact that that salary contract increase passed, correct? Like in a
and
nutshell.
Based on, the salary raises that are in the collective bargaining agreement, their total budget's going to increase.
So this is just the
Yeah.
beginning for the next couple of years. Buckle up.
Correct. But again, we don't know what the change in state aid's going to be. Their enrollment, as their enrollment increases, state aid may increase. And enrollment, and correct me if I'm
May-
wrong, Superintendent
3
Howard,
years-
doesn't necessarily mean an increase in,
Right. So
cost
like,
of-
I think 3 years ago, the raise was either 2.75 or 3.25, but because we eliminated 27 teaching positions and 14 SRP positions, the salary line actually was less than a 1% increase. But the actual raise was more than that, but because we eliminated so many positions and we had a number of retirements, it was actually a lower number.
right? And so depending on, carrying forward that retirements, right? So the more teachers that they get to retire, because I forget the exact number, but I'd say probably 80 or 85% of your teachers are at top step.
75% are at the top step.
So as those teachers that are at the top step retire, if you're getting new teachers in there, part of all, my personal opinion, part of all the problem with with education is when the state back in 2012 changed the retirement ages for teachers, right? It changed pension reform. It impacted back. I've been doing this for a number of years. So way back when, school departments could always count on a certain number of teachers retiring every year, getting new teachers in there. Well, now you're carrying top step teachers for much longer than you had historically. And so it's just really compounded.
It's actually the conversation that happens all the time. The burden of the pension system got shifted to municipalities.
Correct.
Because we carry 75% of top step people. It's top step pay, usually the biggest healthcare plans, usually the biggest stipends, usually the advance increments, all the things that top step people earn and get in terms of their salary sit on our books for much longer. I will say that there are a number of people that I think within the next few years are going to be able to go based on, there was a clause about having a certain number of years and being at least 59 or 60. That's going to kick in for a lot of people who were hired in like 1988, 89. And we're also watching the legislation because they're talking about changing the retirement number from the rule of 95 to the rule of 90, which takes your years of service and age down to 90 from 95 with a minimum age of 60 to retire. If that goes through, there's a little bit of momentum there. You're going to see a lot more retirements, which is good in terms of unloading salary debt. The challenge is going to be then hiring teachers because we're not going to be the only rodeo in town looking for young new teachers. We're all going to be in the same boat.
I wanted to bring you back.
Councilwoman Ionati.
Oh, sorry. Again, I'm new. Give me a break.
You're okay.
New. So, could I ask you something? You just stated that the health, it was going to go up 500,000.
Mhm.
So that's going to bring me back to the internal service fund, correct?
So that the internal service fund, I think you're referencing the $500,000 that's in there. Is that what you're referencing? Yeah. So like the finance director said, there's some money that is coming through like reserve accounts and pharmacy rebates coming back to the school district that we're going to put in those counts so that at the end of the year we will end up with a surplus, which would go down towards our deficit reduction. The increase to healthcare. Our job now, Chris and mine and my team, is to find if there's any way we can find a way to cover this $500,000 increase through our budget now, which means we're probably going to potentially run short someplace else because you can only borrow from Peter to pay Paul so many times before there's nothing else
Have
left.
a deficit.
Well, we don't want a deficit, no. That's not the goal, no.
In
No,
the,
no, that's not the goal, but.
if I can, in the proposed budget that the school department's presented, right, where you have that $500,000 listed as other financing sources, internal service fund. When you look in that budget, if you look down in the expenditures, you'll also see a line item that says next to the last line, appropriation to fund balance accumulated deficit, 1.443 million. So right now, the way this budget's proposed, if all their revenue comes into fruition, including bringing that 500,000 in, which I think is a definitive, we know there's $1 million out there. They can bring in $500,000. That's not a question. It would be the state aid and then being able to achieve their Medicaid and other revenue. But if all that revenue came in, and if the superintendent and his team couldn't find a way to reduce other expenditures by the 500,000, that appropriation to fund balance of 1.4 million, everything else held even, would come down to 943,000. So rather than them reducing their deficit by 1.4 million in fiscal 27, they would only be reducing their deficit by 950,000. So they have a built-in surplus within this budget as presented. There's a built-in surplus of 1,443,705. That's part of the deficit reduction plan where over the next 3 years, again, remember the council approved the 3-year deficit reduction plan. That's how much they're putting towards their deficit. So anything less than $1.4 million surplus next year would mean they ran a deficit in other line items, or they were over expenditures. So as the superintendent indicated, if their estimated increase due to the recent numbers for healthcare and dental, if that extra 500,000, if they were unable to find places to cut it, that deficit reduction line item would be reduced to, roughly 943,000, at which point, we'll have meetings with the Auditor General saying there's deviations in our deficit reduction plan. And one of the advantage that we have, and, conversations, we just had a meeting with the Auditor General today, we have a 3-year deficit reduction plan. Under state law, it's supposed to be over a 5-year period. So we do have that flexibility where it can get extended out. None of us want to extend it further than 3 years, but at least we have that flexibility. We have an aggressive deficit reduction plan that we're hoping we can stick with. But I want everybody to know that that extra 500,000 doesn't mean they automatically have a deficit. It just means their surplus is only 943 rather than 1.4 million.
But our goal is to stick to the plan, right? So we don't want to just let that just roll off. We want to stick to the plan because the sooner we pay that down, I think the better it is for the school department in terms of, our relationship with the town and our status within the community, and the quicker it allows the town to then shift funds to things that are not being attended to. The other thing I was going to mention is that when we have this time of year and we present the budget to you folks, there's still some things we don't know. Kids are still registering for kindergarten. Kids are still selecting their courses in high school. We still have employees notifying us of retirements and leave of absence. So for the next 2 or 3 months, there is some flexibility in terms of what may happen with enrollment and with staff, and there may be an opportunity to find a place to offset that healthcare someplace.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate your comments earlier about our relationship. I think this council is obviously very eager to understand, and shift the conversation from us versus you. But, for the record, the grenades that were tossed last time came from your side of the street. But going forward, I'd like to keep this kind of style. I think it's a lot more useful and maybe less politically appealing to some, but this is the way we need to have these conversations. They're serious. You're our biggest department. I'd also like to see these numbers rerun, obviously, with that 17% increase. We just did some back of the napkin stuff here, but, I don't want to wait too long because I think we have to update the Auditor General on that too. Because the deficit reduction plan, I want to at least keep an eye on it. If we have a rolling draft, we can circulate between the two parties. I don't want to get caught with any more surprises.
Can I just interrupt? So ours is not 17, ours is 14 and a half. Ours is a little bit less than yours. And I'll leave this with the finance director or the manager. We made copies of what Chris reworked in terms of where that deficit money sits in terms of in the benefit. So you can just see it in a fresh budget document. So I'll leave this and send that out.
And do you happen to know where you're sitting right now for the current fiscal year? Because that's
Yes.
going to feed into next
I
year.
actually have that too, and I'll leave that here as well.
Thank you.
We're pretty much even with prior years. If I look at our revenue for and this is at the end of January, it takes some time for us to reconcile all our books. As end of January, in terms of revenue, we had brought in 58% of our revenue, and the end of January this year, it's 58% of our revenue, so we're right on target. And in terms of expenses, this time last year, we had expended 57% of our budget, and this time this year, it's 55% of our budget. So I can leave this with you as well. It has all the background, but we're right on target in terms of what we're spending and what we're bringing in for the year. And I'll leave this as well. This has all the backup information, so you can go through that.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Coward. Does that finish you up for tonight, Mr. Savetti?
Yeah, I think it does. And just to add to that, when he's saying they're online, and if I say this wrong, please correct me. In their fiscal 2026 approved budget, they are projecting a surplus of 976,000. So when everything's in line, I think based on their numbers, they're still projecting a surplus for fiscal 2026, which is obviously part of the deficit reduction plan. And as I mentioned earlier, we did have a meeting this afternoon with the Auditor General's office. Coming on next week's agenda, we're going to be looking just to get a resolution approved that, shows that the council did approve the deficit reduction plan, just to formalize that through the solicitor's office. They've recommended we complete that. So as soon as we submit that to the Auditor General, he's going to approve the deficit reduction plan. We'll get that in writing, he expects by the end of the month of March. And then we're going to be set initially to touch base with him again in June, just to see where we're at currently, and then be on at least quarterly calls with him to make sure that we're staying in compliance with that deficit reduction plan. So rather than a monthly meeting where.
That's a good sign. That's good news.
Yeah, and he's, again, he's complimented everybody here, complimented the council, school committee, obviously administration for getting a deficit reduction plan together and working together, because he's running into this problem in many communities. Coventry's not the only community facing deficits in the school department. So they're actually really looking forward to having our plan finalized, them approving it so that they can distribute it to other communities and see how things can work. So.
Shiny example.
Correct.
Thank you. All right, last item up for tonight. I'll entertain a motion to go in executive session pursuant to our IGL 42465A2 for litigation matters, Nicholas Cambio, trustee, and others versus Commerce Park Realty, and Matthew McGowan as receiver for Commerce Park Realty, LLC, and others versus Commerce Park Management, LLC. Motion, second. Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Capaldi,
Yes.
Councilmember Hul.
Yes.
Councilmember Ionati,
Yes.
Vice President Brown,
Yes.
President Verducci,
Yes.
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative. Motion
Thank you.
passes.
We'll entertain a motion to come out of executive session.
I'll make a motion.
A second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk.
I'll second.
Councilmember Capaldi,
Yes.
Councilmember Hul,
Yes.
Councilmember Ionati,
Yes.
Vice President Brown,
Yes.
President Verducci,
Yes.
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
I will entertain a motion to seal the minutes of executive session.
I'll make a motion.
A second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Capaldi,
Yes.
Councilmember Hul,
Yes.
Councilmember Ionati,
Yes.
Vice President Brown,
Yes.
President Verducci,
Yes.
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Council met in executive session and no votes were taken. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion second, discussion, hearing none. All those in favor, aye, we stand adjourned.